What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more Bad Religion. We're going back to their 1992 album Generator again. I've been looking forward to doing this one. I've mentioned it in a couple other reactions. In particular, I mention it in relation to Best For You, because it's sort of like the flip side of that song, where it's the sort of companion piece to that song, which is to say, Best For You is it's about the way in which in pretty much every facet of someone's life, there are other people, including complete strangers, maybe even those who have interests that are contradictory to the person in question and so on, who have advice on what they should do, who know what the best thing and the best way to see things for that person is. So it's the idea that as you go through your life, whether it's, you know, in relation to family or co-workers or again, strangers out in society, everybody knows the best way to do things and the best way to see things for you specifically, despite the fact that your life might have very little connection to theirs. There may be ways in which the ideas they believe in and the behavioral patterns they support would not, in fact, engage with your life in the same way it does with theirs. It would not have the same connotations for you that it does for them. So it's the way in which, you know, as you go through your life, you're constantly assaulted by other people in an intellectual sense in terms of, you know, what you should think, what you should conclude, and how you should behave. And this song is sort of the flip side of that, because it's about the way, for many people, they're searching for answers from somewhere and someone else. Ultimately, you know, they don't really want to have to put in the work to think hard. They don't really want to have to, you know, balance things and compare and contrast things and come up with sort of like working hypotheses and so on. So the song uses a couple different iterations or a couple different ways in which, you know, this sort of phenomenon can manifest, and it talks about a person who things aren't really going well in his life and perhaps he's inclined towards supernatural belief and so on. So he sort of, you know, drops what he's doing and he kind of goes out into the fields or whatever, and he looks up to the sky and like, what do I do now? Like, he's seeking an answer. Just give me some direction. Give me something to believe and some sort of like program to be a part of, so that I don't really have to be out here on my own, because it's scary being out like in the ocean of ideas and potential behavior without, you know, a lighthouse somewhere or an anchor to keep me in a certain location and so on. So, you know, what do I do now? Just tell me. And then there's another example about a teenage girl, and in fact this is an example where it's a rare Bad Religion song where I criticize or take objection to one of the lyrics. There's an iteration where it's talking about a teenage girl, and, you know, as she gets older and she's, you know, being socialized and, you know, learning from the environment around her, it talks about the way in which she might be watching TV, and she's, you know, watching MTV, and she's getting ideas from Madonna's nasty clothes. Now, I criticize that line because I feel like, number one, I support sex-positive feminism, and I don't think that, like, you know, men should necessarily be the ones who make like decisions about what is or isn't appropriate for women and girls. Ultimately, you know, it's like, to my mind, you know, what girls, especially as they grow up and become adults, what they choose to wear, it's not your choice. And you may have values or sensibilities that feel offended by seeing, you know, someone dressed in a way that maybe you don't agree with or whatever. But at the end of the day, I don't really think that's a choice for you to make, especially if you're talking about, you know, some girl out in the world that's, you know, not your niece or your daughter or whatever. It's, you know, I get it, parents have concerns and there are considerations to make about the age-appropriate nature of certain things. I have no problem with that, but I criticize the idea that, number one, like, Madonna's clothes are necessarily nasty. It's like, look, you know, as an adult woman, she's allowed to express her sexuality and so on and use it in her art and creativity in the way that a lot of guys do, you know. It's like Freddie Mercury, like, famously sung with his shirt off. There are other guys that, like, they have lines in their songs about how many women they've been with and so on. So, like, if we're not gonna like be totally outraged at that in society, then I don't see how it's fair to be outraged that Madonna, you know, chooses to dress a certain way, and that maybe some people might see that as cool, even though they're only, you know, right on the cusp of becoming adults themselves and so on. So I've always sort of like been bothered by that line. But the idea is that as she's sort of, you know, trying to find touchstones in the world and, you know, sort of communities to become a part of or images to latch onto and so on, the idea is that, like, well, you know, she's going to seek out answers from wherever she can find them, and if that means like she's finding answers on how to dress and how to behave from a music video with Madonna, well then perhaps, you know, that's not the best or most balanced way to think about how to behave and how to dress and so on. So I get sort of that verse and what it's trying to do. I just don't think it's articulated well. So love Greg Graffin, shout out to his lyrics, but you know, every once in a while there's something where it's like, I don't know about that. And then eventually there's a verse about, and this is how you can tell it's written by Greg, because he's talking about, you know, his position as working as a professor, working in higher education, and he's talking about, or he mentions that, you know, once a righteous student came and asked me to reflect. He judged my lifestyle to be politically incorrect. And he was basically saying, like, you know, but, you know, don't come here, like, I don't believe in self-important folks who preach, and at the end of the day, you're going to get no answers from me. I'm not here telling people, like, how to behave. I'm telling stories, and I'm articulating ideas about how I think and how I see people, or how I see the species, I should say. But yeah, I think the point of the verse is that, like, look, I'm not out here like saying you should live like this, and this is, you should abstain from this, and you should support this particular group, and so on. That, you know, Bad Religion songs aren't really like that. They're about, you know, a lot, again, like philosophical perspectives on humanity and sort of Earth and so on. So yeah, it's basically a song that critiques the idea of people just like seeking answers, because, like, again, in the last verse, I think the idea is that the kid was, the student was a Bad Religion fan. He's saying, like, well, hey, like, you know, you said this, and if you say this, then how come you can't, like, shouldn't you also think this or whatever? And it's like, but you're thinking about me all wrong. Like, I'm not out here like proclaiming with a bullhorn what to think and what not to think. I'm expressing my ideas as a human being and as a sort of, you know, critical thinker and so on. But yeah, I don't, you know, I'm not here telling you what to do. So yeah, it's again, it's an idea, or it's a song that critiques the human disposition, perhaps more clearly manifested in some humans than others, but that to, you know, seek out arguments from authority, to seek out behavioral programs that are already pre-established, because, you know, we can't necessarily either be bothered, or it's like scary to try to, you know, be out there and just critically think about anything that comes your way without someone kind of like directing you towards something. So again, you'll get no direction from me is the name, or is the sort of refrain of the end of the song. So yeah, let's get to it. This is Bad Religion, No Direction, from their 1992, or two, I was going to say three, but 1992 album, Generator. This is the sort of like the sonics I remember. The very beginning, I was almost like, wait, is this the right tune? But this sort of
I saw the figure walk along a dusty road. His life was holy and he couldn't bear the load. He left his people and a simple life behind. He raised his torso and he looked into the sky, shouting his questions, looking for directions. What do I do now? Goes empty, betrayed. The stress is up the jury, come out every day. She glances up to see her favorite video and gets ideas from a dog's nasty clothes. In need of affection, she craves our direction. Her heroes offer her.
Her heroes offer her.
Everyone's looking for something, and they assume somebody else knows what it is. No one can live with the decisions of their own. It seems so they look to someone else to tell them what to be, tell them what to wear, tell them what to say, tell them how to act and think of others compulsively until the world is all like that.
I love the oozing on the wall. Classic solo. I think of this like solo sometimes. It's like memorable enough that like I can recall it like when I think of the song. Kind of deep and bluesy at the end of it.
My righteous student came and asked me to reflect. He judged my lifestyle was politically incorrect.
Bad Religion song will make your life complete. I love that. I fucking love that. I forgot about that line. Like, look, you know, it's cool that you like our music, but the answer is not in this song. And you'll get no direction.
You'll get no direction from me.
I love it. He doesn't do that stuff all that much, but in their early albums especially, which I feel like this and Recipe for Hate are kind of like the end of the like early phase for me, and then it goes kind of into the middle like Atlantic phase and so on. But in the early records, if you would chill out on your echoed, faded outro, I do like it though. But yeah, in the early albums, he would occasionally do, I think, a few more kind of vocalizations, like, you know, rhythmic sort of interjections. And one he used to do a lot is Sit Down, which I've never heard anyone else do. You know, I've heard like, come on, and that kind of stuff. But Sit Down was one that I don't remember any other band doing. So yeah, like there's some live performances too. I think on Tested he does it a couple times. But I always enjoyed that. So yeah, the 1-2 there felt like, it reminds me of kind of the early sort of live performances that I've heard from Bad Religion. But yeah, it's a cool song, like I said. It really is a companion piece to The Answer, to me. So yeah, it's interesting. I did them like in reverse order, I think. Because when does The Answer come? What album is that on? I'm blanking on it now that I think about it. But I think it's after this. I think maybe, oh fuck it, I'll just look it up. But yeah, the two songs really, I do think, get at the same epistemological territory. The Answer, oh, it's from the same album. That's interesting. So they were obviously, yeah, it's also from this album, Generator. I know there's some Bad Religion fans out there that were like, bro, like, what are you talking about, what album it's from? It's from the same one that you're holding in your hand. But yeah, you know, I am going through a lot of music lately, so sometimes brain dead moments like that will happen. But again, it does tell me that at this time, this is something that was like circulating through Greg's brain a great deal, this idea of like epistemology and, you know, arguments from authority and just taking something as sacrosanct because a particular person who you value in one way or another happens to say it, whether it's Madonna and her style or Greg Graffin and his anthropological assessments and his lyrics and so on. So yeah, it's a really cool tune. Let me know what you think. Shout out to the Bad Religion fan. Shout out to all of you who've made requests for Bad Religion, especially Ryan, also Jimmy a couple times, I think. But yeah, shout out to all of you, and let me know if you have another tune you'd like to hear me do a reaction to. Other than that, I'll see you next time.